Hey everyone, this is Ben Winslet from Huntsville, Alabama, and I wanted to make a video sharing with you a couple of different methods that we've used to live stream our services here at Flint River Church. Now, before going into the specifics on how you can live stream, I think it's important to spend just a couple of moments talking about the opportunity that live stream presents for your congregation. In other words, why would I want to live stream the services at whatever church I'm a part of? First of all, when people are absent from your congregation, if they're out sick, if they're on vacation, if the car broke down and they're unable to make it to service, they can jump on Facebook Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock and they can follow along the same sermon, 15 seconds time delayed, from the rest of the congregation. So it helps people keep up with the services and what they missed. It's also a great tool for sharing with your family and friends, those around you that you wish you could expose to the preaching in your church but haven't come out to church with you. You can send them a link and they can watch the sermon as soon as service ends and that live stream is concluded. That lives there on your church's Facebook page or your personal Facebook page, wherever you live stream from, until you delete it. As long as you want it to live there, that's how long it will be there. Another good thing about live streaming is that it's a great way to expose other people who are not familiar with Primitive Baptist to the gospel that we preach. How many times have you heard a message at your church and you thought, man, I wish everyone in our community could have just heard that sermon? Well, live streaming gives you that opportunity to immediately do that. There's no production that's involved. There's no editing. There's no uploading. But once that live stream is concluded, it lives there on your Facebook page forever. And you can even, if you have a church page, you can make the sermon, after it's concluded, a paid advertisement in your area. If you're uncomfortable with the concept of making a paid advertisement, the way that I think about this is the same way that I think about radio. And we've been broadcasting on the radio here and in other markets for 10 years. January of 2018 was our 10th year on the radio. Legally, my title in the contract with WBXR, Wilkins Communications here in Huntsville, is that I am a paid advertiser. And so they consider me an advertiser. So that means that every Primitive Baptist radio program is legally a paid advertisement. With boosting, what they call it on Facebook, a Facebook post, you're an advertiser. And so it falls in the same classification as radio. So if radio's okay, then boosting a post on Facebook is also okay. Now, when you do that, you advertise a post on Facebook, anyone pulls up their smartphone, and as they're scrolling through their smartphone, wherever that they are, all of a sudden they come across a Primitive Baptist sermon, and they may not follow your church, they may not know you or anything about you, and they're in their smartphone or on their computer, when they're scrolling through Facebook, a sermon, the gospel, appears, and they're able to hear that. Think about it this way. Some people have their smartphones set to autoplay videos. So as they're scrolling through, the video begins to play, the sound begins to emanate from their speakers, and you're literally preaching to someone you've never met, if you're a preacher, in their living room or on their lunch break at work or wherever else they are. And it's an awesome opportunity to share the gospel with those that are around you in your church's immediate community. Now, I want to share with you two different ways that we've live streamed here at Flint River Church. The first way is the most simple way, and there are several different variations of this, and that's simply going live on Facebook with your smartphone. And I'll show you the setup that we used for that and some inexpensive tools that I use to make that as good as a live stream can be with a smartphone, just using your smartphone. And then second, I want to share with you the way that we're live streaming now, which is utilizing a PTZ, a pan, tilt, zoom camera mounted in our sanctuary, and it feeds the video signal through a USB cable to my laptop and we go live through a laptop each Sunday on Facebook using a program called OBS Studios. So if you're curious about live streaming, and that's something that your church has considered, I think we've been asked since we began doing this dozens of times, how do you do this? How much does it cost? Is it something that anybody can do? Well, you definitely want to watch this video and learn how you can live stream inexpensively. It's not very expensive at all at your church. And I'll also say, if you're just randomly watching this on the internet, that I have in mind a Primitive Baptist audience. I am at a Primitive Baptist church, and I'm speaking primarily to Primitive Baptist. Our congregations, our churches have 30 minutes of a cappella singing, followed by an hour of preaching and public prayer sprinkled throughout our worship services. And what we do here, we don't live stream the song service. We only live stream the sermon portion of the service. And so that's primarily what this particular video is going to be geared towards, is broadcasting the sermon portion of our worship services. Now, the first method that we want to look at is live streaming your service through a smartphone. And basically with this method, you want to pick a good vantage point from the pulpit, one that doesn't get in the way of the rest of the service that's going on, one that doesn't interfere or disrupt your service, but a good enough vantage point that you get a quality video of the pulpit. And that's item number one. So that's the first thing that we'll consider. This is the area that we live stream from when we were using a smartphone. And I basically spent $30 on a tripod from Walmart, and it has a smartphone mount that hooks to the top of it. Now, when we live stream from this position, I had a cameraman, and he stood here at the camera. As soon as I began preaching, after we sang our final hymn in the change of service, we have prayer, then we stand together and sing a hymn, he would be logged into my Facebook, he would be ready to go live, he would get all that ready in the opening hymn, and as soon as we sat down after the opening hymn, he would simply click go live. And if you have a Facebook app on your phone, I'm not going to load up Facebook, but you know exactly what that looks like. You just go to make a status on your church page, you click the option for go live, you give it a title, you have your camera pointed, and then you just click go live and hold on because you are live. Now, one of the issues that I ran into was that it seemed to be too far away from the pulpit. And it might not look like it from here, but especially if you don't have the data to be in 720p, in 360p, that's not a lot of detail. Now, I'll come around and show you what we did to remedy the distance, because I didn't like how blurry and how distant the shot was on Facebook, especially when it wasn't 720p. So I went on Amazon and I bought a couple of these clip-on lenses. This one is a 3x zoom, and the other one that I bought was a 2x zoom. The 2x zoom I liked better. Even though this 3x zoom is going to put you closer to the pulpit as far as the distance your video appears to be, I found that it has a slight distortion. It warps the view just a little bit. But the 2x zoom, the 2x zoom that I had, it was great. And it made it a much closer shot of the pulpit, but at the same time, it didn't distort the video at all. So as rickety as it may sound to you to just clip a lens over your camera, it actually can get a decent result. So I used a smartphone on a cheap tripod in the corner of the building, pointed at the pulpit. Now, let's address sound. Now, in my opinion, sound is as important, if not slightly more important, than the video quality. So if you had a good 720p video from the tripod, but the audio was 20 feet, 30 feet away, it's going to be distant and it's not going to be as crisp and precise as it ought to be. So what I did to remedy that, so I have my SM57 there, incidentally the same microphone that's been on the president's podium for 50 years. I bought a Y splitter. Okay, so I bought this Y splitter from the local guitar store, and I installed it in the line. This end goes to the sound room the way that this line did before. It goes all the way up. Our sound room is behind that wall there, and it pipes the audio to the sound room like before. I installed this line, and it runs from the pulpit underneath the crawl space, literally under where I'm walking now, and it comes out over here by the tripod. You see that? I didn't want wires running across the floor, and since this was temporary, I kind of wish I had, but it's nice to have this set up here in case I ever need it. An XLR cable, your standard mic cable, comes out right there. I just ran it through that little port I picked up at Lowe's, and it runs to this device that's called a smart rig. Now, there's a couple of different versions of this that you can buy, made by different companies. This is a smart rig made by Ceramonic. IK Multimedia makes what's called an iRig, and they both basically do the same thing. It's, in essence, an XLR preamp that takes the signal that comes from your standard XLR cable, like the SM57 in the pulpit, and connects it to a smartphone 4-band aux cable. What this is a preamp. It takes the signal from that microphone and it sends it into your smartphone. Now, just as an example of what sort of audio signal you can get through the microphone running to your smart rig into your smartphone or your iPhone, this is the audio through that. I didn't record it separately and dub it over. This is straight through the microphone into your phone. So this is the audio quality that you could achieve using this method to live stream your services. Now, the next method of live streaming that I want to talk about is using a PTZ Cam, and this is our current method of live streaming here at Flint River. You'll notice over the door there before the exit sign is a interesting looking little device that looks kind of like a land surveyor's total station or transit, but that's actually a camera. In this case, a Vadio Clearview USB HD camera. And what that does, it actually is a plug and play HD camera that pipes video through a USB cable directly into my computer. It's plug and play. There's not anything other than a driver that needs to be installed for the computer to recognize that. And if your computer is new enough, it will automatically detect it and use it. So it's literally plug and play. The neat thing about the Vadio is that it also has an analog output in 480p. So I have the digital output through USB, and then I have the 480p analog output, and that analog output I have going into a coax. You can see that little Philips Magnavox box right there beside it. That takes the output from the camera and it converts it into a coaxial, and I ran that coax to 3 different rooms here. It goes to the fellowship hall, it goes to the sound room, and it goes to the cry room. We have a cry room here, and rather than putting a big window in the wall for ladies to see through to watch the service, if they have to go nurse their baby or change their baby, they can watch it on a TV, and I have speakers in the ceiling. Now, a note on that, as we'll show you in the sound room in just a minute, if you're using a PTZ camera or any other sort of a camcorder to live stream, you're going to have to get audio from somewhere. Unlike a smartphone, it doesn't have a built-in microphone, which you wouldn't want anyway. You would not want audio for your live stream 50 feet away, in our case, from the pulpit. It would be distant, it would echo, you would get more of the congregation noise than you got of the pulpit. So since we already had a camera here installed that ran to the cry room, we already had this nice shelf installed. I've seen some churches where they'll cut out a little hole here and box it in and make a little platform for the camera to sit, whatever you want to do. is great. In this case, we already had this mount, so I just drilled 2 holes here in this shelf, and underneath this clear view there are a couple of different holes that fit your standard size camera mount screw. I don't know what size screw it is, but it's the one that goes in the bottom of every single camera I've ever mounted to anything. It's the same exact size in the smartphone mount in my tripod. You'll need electricity, which we already had because of the pre-existing coaxial setup that ran to different rooms here so people could watch. And we had a really cheap old webcam type camera feeding into the fellowship hall and the cry room. But you have to have a power, and you see that I installed that. And this is a cheap little box I picked up at the hardware store that's supposed to allow you to run your cables to a wall-mounted TV or something. Anyway, you just drill a hole in the wall, and there's a plate that you install that allows you to sink those screws into it to hold it on. But that's basically just a USB cable that plugs into the back of the camera. Now, a word, you have to use a powered USB cable if this camera is going to have to send signal more than 15 feet. USB only sends about 15 feet. In my case, to go all the way to the sound room, I had to have about 30 feet of cable. So this requires what's called an active USB cable. The one that came with your printer, the one that maybe came with a camera that you have, those are usually passive USB cables. You need what's called an active USB cable, and you can buy one online for little to nothing. So this camera, you might be wondering, what's the cost? One of those cameras, brand new, hold your breath, is about $3,000. And Vadio, you see there, that brand, makes a great one. PTZ Optics makes a good camera. Sony makes a good camera. There are several that are on the market now that are good, great quality cameras. However, this particular camera cost me $260. How did I get a $3,000 camera for $260? I got it used on eBay from a reputable seller. So there were dozens of these, I would add, that were for sale on eBay. And you can pick one of these up, a Vadio Clearview USB HD PTZ cam for less than $300. So how do we control the cam? Well, check this out. You may be wondering, how is it that you turn this camera on and you aim this camera each and every Sunday? I don't think I would want to get here every Sunday and climb up on a ladder and angle the thing. Well, it comes with a remote control. And the one that I bought used still had the remote with it. With this remote control, you can pan the thing, tilt the thing, zoom the thing, and with a 19x zoom, it really zooms far. I can do a close-up shot of the microphone itself, and it'll take up the entire screen, the microphone. So it's got plenty of zoom. The advantage of this over a smartphone or any device that has a digital zoom is that with an optical zoom like that has, it zooms through the lenses and not through any sort of digital zoom. So when you zoom all the way in, it's not going to be grainy. If you take your smartphone and you zoom in, you know what I mean. The smartphone gets very grainy because it's digitally zooming. It's digitally expanding the image. But with this, it is an optical zoom. Now, another cool thing about it is it has presets. So you can set your presets. You have 6 presets on this. And for example, the pulpit preset that I use each Sunday is preset 4. If I want to record the congregational singing, I use preset 2. And so for preset 4, it's a tight shot of the pulpit. For preset 1, it's a pulpit shot, but a little more distant. I don't move around in my sermons. Some preachers do. So if it's a preacher that moves around, I'll set it on 1. If it's me, it's on 4. The congregational singing camera angle is preset 2. Now I'll show you how easy it is to change the camera angle with this remote using the presets. Okay, now I have it set to the congregational singing angle, so it's pointed downwards and it's zoomed all the way out. If I wanted to go to the pulpit, I simply hold number 4 and it will, you see how it changed the tilt and the zoom? Now watch me hit 2 and it'll go back to the angle that it was before. See, that is really simple. If I wanted to spend a little bit more money, I could get a joystick and hook the joystick up and literally control it from the sound room. And if I connected it via Ethernet to my computer, supposedly I could actually access all of these presets and all of the controls that this remote has from my computer. So now we're back in the sound room, which is where the actual live stream is broadcast from. The video comes from the Audio PTZ Cam through a USB cable and plugs directly into my laptop. You can see the USB cable plugging right up into that. Now, as far as where the video comes from, you can see that bundle of wires. Sound rooms are notoriously messy rooms. That's every speaker wire that goes to every speaker in this building, and there are many, many speakers in this building. There are mic cables that run up and down that, and there is the USB cable. So the USB cable runs down that wiring harness and it plugs into the laptop right there. So what about sound? Video comes from the USB camera. How do I get sound into my computer? Well, it's probably so simple, you'll think it's absurd. They make expensive devices that sync the audio from your soundboard with the video from your camera, and you can spend $1,000 on one of those things. Well, my solution, because we don't need a lot of that in a Primitive Baptist church, cost about $6. So you see there that I have the headphone output, and that's a stereo 1/4-inch output. I got this stereo 1/4-inch adapter that goes from 1/4-inch to 3.5 millimeter or 1/8 inch. I plug it in there, and I take this standard aux cable, 3-band aux cable. Now your smartphone requires a 4-band. This is a 3-band aux cable. I plug this 3-band aux cable into that adapter. I turn the volume down so it doesn't blow up my computer and burn out my mic input. And the other end of the aux cable plugs right into the mic input on my computer. And I have it set at about 18, 20, somewhere around in there, the line input with all the boosts and everything off. And that puts audio, it receives it just like it would receive a plug-in mic. Now, the final thing that you have to do once you've installed your camera and you have your audio coming into your computer and the videos coming into your computer is to actually go live on Facebook. And so you go to your church's Facebook page or whatever Facebook page from which you want to go live, and you see that little option right there. It says start a live video. See it right there. So you click that and it automatically begins the process of going live. Now, when this option of live streaming with an external camera was originally rolled out on Facebook, you had to have some sort of second-party software, and they would send you 2 or 3 suggestions when you tried to go live to connect to an external camera. And you can see it says unable to find camera. That's because my camera is here in OBS, the software that I use to live stream. Now, if I didn't have OBS on, it's taken over my camera, it would actually let me live stream directly through Facebook. So I would be able to go live straight through my browser with no software. But I like to use this software, OBS Studio, and it's free. Now, the reason that I like to use OBS, you see that right there? I don't know if you can see it. That's our church logo. And right under that is FlintRiverPBC.org. With OBS, it allows you to basically produce anything you want to produce. It's literally a studio suite. It's free, and I could produce a news broadcast using OBS. Like, check this out. If you wanted to have a bumper before your live stream, we used to do that. Live stream to begin shortly, press play to join stream. You could literally have an image or a video as a scene, and it could be announcing your live stream beginning, And then when the preacher began preaching, you could volume up on your soundboard and swap over to your pulpit feed, which is another scene that I have programmed in here. And then boom, you have your camera feed. Now I have this set, the camera is pointed at the congregation. I could go out there and push preset 2 and it would zoom in on the pulpit, but there's no need to do that. Now you see I have the URL I can turn on and off right here by clicking that little eyeball. I can turn the watermark on and off. I can turn the camera on and off. So when the scene ends, you can fade to another scene if you wanted that, and it says outro. And it's an image that I made with a thank you for watching and information about our church and some links and such. But I like to use OBS because it's a little more professional. You get a little more professional of a result for your live stream. Okay, so let's look at then going live from Facebook. See, you want to go to this external connect, and it's going to give you a stream key. So you copy the stream key, you go back to OBS, you click on settings on the bottom right, you go to stream, you paste in your stream key, you click apply and OK. And by the way, you can record as well to your hard drive. So if you wanted to record something, you could click start recording right there, and you could have a hard copy on your computer in addition to the live stream, which I really like, to be able to have a copy that if the internet goes out, if my live stream messes up, I can continue. I can upload that later. I can share it on YouTube. I can upload it to Facebook later. I don't lose the video if the live stream dies, which it has a tendency to do from time to time. So, all right, I pasted the stream key Facebook gave me. You saw me do that. I click Start Streaming. That's going to begin streaming. It's pointing the signal at Facebook and shooting the signal Facebook's way. You go back over here to Facebook, and it fetches your video stream. See it doing that? This can take a few seconds. I'm never in on this part of it. I'm usually in the pulpit. Okay, so now you see on Facebook, it has the camera feed that's coming from OBS. So then if I wanted to go live, I can title it and say whatever I want to say about the video. See that little blue button right down there on the bottom right? I don't know if you can see where my cursor is. If I were to click that, Flint River would go live on Facebook right now. Flint River would go live. That's all it takes. And I know I took 20 minutes to tell you about it, but that's all it takes. You got to have a camera, you got to have an audio source, and then it goes to your computer, and you use software like OBS to stream to Facebook, and I could click go live, and then as soon as I'm done, you just click end live stream, and your live stream is over, and that's all she wrote. Well, I hope that answered just about any question that you'd have about live streaming. We've been doing it for a period of months. We've gotten some visitors from the community who came in and visited us after seeing the services online. Like I said, a lot of people in our congregation, when they're out sick, they're able to keep up with the services, and we've even had some folks utilize it as a tool to reach out to their neighbors and friends and to share the gospel with them. So it's a very beneficial tool. I know it probably seems more complicated than it really is, especially if you go live through a laptop using OBS, but it's really not that difficult once you give it a try a few times. It's as easy as logging into your email or any other thing that you do on the internet. I guarantee you, if you have any teenagers or 20s in your church, in your congregation, they probably have a good enough grasp on technology to be able to man this, and it'll actually give them something productive and creative to do as a part of the body of Christ in your congregation. It'll give them something good to do. So it'll put them to work in the kingdom. Now, lastly, before concluding our video, I'll make mention of the fact that you need decent internet at your church building to be able to live stream with a computer. In our case, we're out on the outskirts of town, and I had two internet options here. One was about $250 a month, and the other was about $500 a month. And obviously, I passed on either one of those. What I did was I added a 4G hotspot to my T-Mobile phone, and it was, I think, an additional $5 a month for 10 gigs of 4G hotspot because I already had unlimited data on my phone. Hopefully, you have an affordable option to get internet at your church building, but even if you don't, if you have good cell signal, I get 3 or 4 bars here at Flint River at our facility, it is probably going to be adequate if you pay to have a 4G hotspot on your phone. You could even get a secondary 4G hotspot and install it at your building and just turn it on when you get there. But I found that 4G upload speeds, 95% of the time, is fast enough for 720p, especially if you have it set about 30 frames per second. Your 4G hotspot upload speeds are going to be fast enough to live stream on, but you probably need to test that before you go live for the first time. Well, all right, thanks for watching. I hope this tutorial has been a benefit to you. I know it's a little bit lengthy, but it's a subject that takes a little bit of time to walk you through, and I tried to cover everything that I know about live streaming as far as the methods that we've used to accomplish it and the types of results that we've gotten out of live streaming. As with anything that we do in the church, I hope that God will add his blessings to it, and whatever benefit or edification or blessing or growth that we receive from sharing the gospel in this means, we want to give God all the glory and the praise and the honor, because if this works, it's because God has blessed us in his grace and in his providence. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.